happening, everybody? This is Patrice from My Embellished Life. Welcome back to my channel where I show you guys all of my sewing shenanigans and whatever else tickles my fancy. Thank you so much for stopping by and deciding to embark on this incredible journey with me. Okay, you guys, so in today's video, it's kind of a double the pleasure, double the fun kind of thing. Hey, do you guys remember that 90s double mint commercial? Double the pleasure, double the fun. It's the statement with the great mint in double mint gum. Oh my goodness, 90s commercial, what a time to be alive. But anyway, focus, Pat. This video is sort of a double the pleasure, double the fun kind of thing. But Pat, why is that? Let me tell you. It's because for the month of September, I've been looking at patterns that I've sewn previously and remaking those garments. But lo and behold, I wasn't aware at the time when I started that there was an actual challenge going on along those lines. I think I was watching one of Chris's videos after I started. I think it was her, and she mentioned a challenge. Was it an Instagram challenge that she was taking part in or something like that? I can stand to be corrected, but anyway. So for the month of September, I was just remaking old patterns. And I'm glad that I did that. So if you would like to see what those patterns are and the outcomes of those makes, let's get in it. So let me tell you the pattern that started everything. It's McCall's 8009. Listen, that pattern triggered everything. Yes, it did. You guys know the jumpsuit that I made 2 videos back in the Sew With Me? That jumpsuit. So I have a Sew With Me. That's the updated version. And the first time I made it, I did a pattern review. I think it's the 3rd or 4th video on my channel, but I'll pop the link so you can go back and watch those videos if you choose to do so. But anyway, listen, that jumpsuit, that lace, he couldn't tell me nothing. So the first time I made that jumpsuit, I used Ankara fabrics and I added sleeves. And I always told myself that when I make it again, I would make it sleeveless and add the adjustment to accommodate my shoulders and whatnot. So you know what? I made it again. And this time I used lace with lycra lining. And it was, mwah. I did the pivot and slide. Look, listen, I love that method of adjustment. It's working for me now. Yeah, but anyway, so I used a pivot and slide and I did the adjustment for the narrow shoulders and the sloped shoulders. And I also did a sway back adjustment. And of course, all the details are in my Sew With Me. And that bad boy, chef's kiss. I loved the outcome of that jumpsuit. Like I told you guys in that video, because of the lycra blend lining, the jumpsuit is kind of heavy. And I wouldn't recommend wearing, I wouldn't allow myself to wear it in high heat conditions. I would not, because it will consume me. I will combust in that bad boy. But so she's currently just lounging away in my wardrobe, waiting for another opportunity to present itself. But yeah, she's all good. I'm happy with the outcome. I'm happy with all of the adjustments that I did with that jumpsuit. And so, yeah, McCall's 8009. She is set. She is set, and definitely some more jumpsuit will be made from that pattern. So after the successful outcome of McCall's 8009, I still wanted to continue garment sewing because you guys know that I didn't do any garment sewing for the summer, and I still have that video to upload explaining what I did for this summer. Yeah, Pat, get on it. Get on it. But anyway, so I wanted to continue sewing, and I was hoping to do the Vogue pattern, the other contender that I had for the birthday celebration. But to be honest, I was not in the mood to mess with new patterns and do those initial adjustments and the tracing and all of that. I just wasn't in that mood. I am so sorry. So I went in my stash, just in my fabric stash to see what it is that I want to do. And I came across a fabric that I purchased from my local fabric store. This fabric. Yeah. Now, I love this fabric because of the weight of the fabric, and I just love the different blues going through it. Now, I don't remember the substrate of the fabric, but it feels like kind of a corduroy. I know it's not corduroy, but it has that feeling. I would say it's a cousin of the corduroy family, I think. But anyway, it's this beautiful fabric. And instantly, the Belladone dress from Deer and Doe came to mind. Yes, you guys know that I did that pattern in February. I think it's February, when I was on the quest of doing monthly showcasing for indie patterns. And I need to get back on that. I think I dropped off in May. It wasn't intentional, but yeah, I'm still purchasing indie patterns, still sewing them up. I think I've sewn up some recently. Did I? Oh God, Patrice, what are you telling the people? But anyway, I am still purchasing indie patterns, but I just fell off the bandwagon of showcasing these pattern brands. But anyway, so I sewed up the Belladone dress. Absolutely love that pattern. And of course, I did a pattern review. Did I do a sew with me? No, I did a pattern review. Of course, I'll link it. But yes, I did. I sewed up that pattern, and I did a mock-up for the top for that pattern because early on in the year, that's when I started to really fine-tune my adjustments. So I did a mock-up for the Belladone dress, and I was so proud of myself. So, of course, I did the adjustment for my shoulders. Yes, I did. And I think that was it. And of course, I did a pivot and slide for that as well. And I did the mock-up of the bodice to see how the fit would have been, because that was the first time I was using the Deer and Doe patterns. And even with those adjustments, I still had some neck gaping, in the front of the neck, back of the neck, and I still had some gaping, in the underarms and stuff like that. So I went in and I put 2 small dots at the front of the dress. I went in a further ½ inch at the back of the neck, and then underarms, I also went in a further ½ inch to alleviate those, to get rid of those gaps. And that worked. The dress came out beautiful. That is one of my staples for my work wardrobe. Yeah, it's constantly in the laundry, and I told myself that I have to make it again so I could give that pattern, that dress, a break. So I said, okay, let me use this fabric to create another Belladone dress. So that's what I did. So I went in and I said, okay, I knew the first time that I had to do some extra fittings the first time around. Let me see if I can do that on the pattern before. So I said, okay, I don't really think that I want to do any small dots or anything. So I said, let me do the slash dots on the pattern, and we take it from there. So I did the slash dots at the front, slash dot at the back, and then slash dots underneath, well, in the arm area as well, to get rid of those gaping, along with my shoulder adjustments. And yes, the bodice fits. the bodice fits, there was no gaping or anything like that. The issue that I had with this dress is that this fabric frays like the decades. Oh my goodness, this fabric gave my serger a run for its money. My serger isn't happy, you. She isn't happy. She wasn't happy. Oh my goodness. And also this fabric has a slight stretch to it. So even though, the sizing was correct, it just had a slight room to it than I would have liked because of that little stretch. And also because of that as well, the waistline was also longer than I wanted it to be. It stretched. The fabric is kind of, heavy. Not extremely heavy, but it has some weight to it. And, so the waistline is lower, just slightly lower than I would like it to be. So that is my pet peeve with this dress. But other than that, I think that the slash dots that I did on the pattern, instead of having to do the dots and all of that, worked brilliantly. What I should have done in this dress, I should have incorporated the sway back adjustment. That is what I omitted, and I am kicking myself. I could have done with doing a sway back adjustment, but the next time it definitely would have a sway back adjustment in this dress. So after I did the Belladone dress, I still wanted to do another dress. I didn't get the satisfaction, the complete satisfaction that I wanted. And I was toying whether or not to do the Belladone dress again in a different material, or should I move on to another dress pattern. So in the end, I opted to do another dress pattern. At this time, it was Vogue 9075. Now, with this particular pattern, I did this dress some years ago. This is when I was entering back into sewing after I took a very, 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 very long hiatus, and I decided to sew up that dress. And so I don't have any pictures of that dress or anything because I wasn't happy with the outcome of that dress. And let me tell you why. That dress is a dress that made me realize that I need to shorten my waistline, because where that dress hit on my body, it was just too low, and I just felt a bit uncomfortable, and it was also a little too large as well, because I think that time I used the body measurement instead of the finished garment measurement. I think I did. So it was a little too big, and then the waistline just wasn't hitting where I would have felt comfortable. And so with that, I know I didn't trash the garment. I think I put it away because I decided that I was going to reuse the material. So I put it in storage, and it's somewhere behind guard back, so there isn't any photos or anything like that. So I decided I wanted to revisit this pattern again, now that better in selecting my sizes, because back then when we were learning to sew, we were told to use the body measurements, and then you would try it on and then make fittings and all of that. Since then, I just use the finished garment measurements, and it works. My life is easier. So I said, you know what? I like the dress. Oh, another thing I didn't like was also the neckline of that dress, because it was just a little too close to my neck than I would have liked. But yeah, I still decided to make the dress anyway. So with me wanted to remake the dress again, I said, okay, let me go into my fabric stash and select let's do a wearable mock, right? So I went into my work fabric stash because, you know, these dresses, I love them for work. And I had a suiting fabric, beautiful fabric. The problem is it's tan. It's a part of the brown family. And you guys know how I feel about brown. It makes me look a bit frumpy and stuff like that. But I said, you know what? I think I could be able to work with it, if I wear the right cardigan and the right belts and the right accessories and stuff like that. I said, let me use this fabric. So even if I jack it up, I don't think I would be too upset about it, that kind of way. Yeah, so I had this beautiful suiting fabric. This is the dress that I'm dragging here with you to show you all the fabric. This lovely basket weave fabric. I love fabric for my work dresses. These fabric that has weight to them, I prefer them for these sort of dresses. Hence why my Belladone dress was with this material. So yes, that's the fabric that I use, and I decided to make the adjustments to the pattern. So I went in and I selected a size 16, and I did the adjustments to do the pivot and slide. I did the adjustment for my shoulders, both narrow shoulder and the slope shoulder. This dress, I did a sway back adjustment. Yes, I did. And I'm so happy that I did. Also, I did shorten the waistline. Okay, so those were the adjustment that I use. I omitted the lining. I opted not to do a lining, the required lining, just because the fabric was so heavy. To me, a lining just wasn't needed. So I went and I did those adjustments and I sewed up the dress. And for the most part, I'm happy with the outcome. But I realized that, yes, I took the measurements to shorten the waistline according to my torso length. So according to my torso length, I was supposed to subtract 2.5 inches. And you know what? At the time when I was making these adjustments, I was wrestling with myself whether or not to do the 2.5 inches, or should I do a 2 inches or even 1.5. And I should have listened to the wiser part of me, because I did the 2.5 and it is entering into baby doll territory. So it's slightly higher than I would have liked. I mean, it works. It definitely works, but it's slightly higher than I would have liked. So that is my pet peeve with with the adjustment that I did with this pattern. So I know that I have to go back and lower it just a bit to get it to where I wanted it to be. What I like about this dress is that it is princess darts. I love me princess seams instead of, the ordinary bust darts and stuff like that. I think that I get a much better fit with these princess darts. When I'm doing the adjustments, it takes more work because now I'm working with more pieces. But the outcome, listen, the adjustments, lovely. That sway back, lovely. It's just the waist length, or else this dress would have been good. So I told myself, the next time that I do it, I have two options. I can either lower the waist, or I can add a smaller waistband in between just to lower it. So that's my two options. What I also did with this dress, because if you notice in the pattern, the dress is gathered. The skirt part of it is gathered. This material isn't going to work with gathered. It's going to be too thick. So I opted to use pleats instead. So using the Bella dress format, I used those pleats on this dress, and I loved the outcome of that. So I'm very happy with it. The only thing, like I said, I'm not happy with is how high the waist ended up to be. But I know what use your words, Pat. I know what I'm going to do to fix that situation. So yeah, this dress, I'm definitely going to make it again. I will. I definitely will. And I think with lengthening the waistline, maybe to maybe 1.5 inches, she would work. She will definitely work. So yeah, I'm still on this dress kick, you guys, and this time I used the pattern New Look 6491. Listen, if I had known this pattern would have had me in such a chokehold, I would have done it so long ago. So let me tell you about this pattern. I first made this pattern in is it July or the end of June? The Atina's jacket, you know, that jacket that I did with the BVI territorial fabric, that dress, the dress that I took the photo in, that's New Look 6491. That was the first time I made that dress. I made that dress just to pair with that jacket. Yeah, and I've had that dress pattern in my stash for such a long time, you know, and every summer or so, or I would take it out, a part of my plans, and something would happen, and then I would put it back. And I've done this over and over for so many years. And this year I said, no way. Let's make up this bad boy. So back in June, I did it. I had some white eyelet embroidery floral fabric, and I absolutely loved, and I decided to make a dress out of that fabric. Now let me see if I can pull the dress so you can see what the fabric looks like. And I'm going to take photos of all of these when I'm finished with this video, so you will see. So this is the fabric. You know, there's the leaves embroidered, and they have, you know, some eyelets, embellishments. Lovely, 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 lovely. And so I decided to make this dress pattern. Now, one of my biggest pet peeves with some of the New Look patterns is that the finished garment measurements sometimes are omitted. So it's not on the pattern envelope, it's not on the pattern pieces. And so it can get a bit tricky, because now you have to sit down and measure the pieces, and which I did. And yeah, it didn't work for me the way that I wanted it to work. The garment still ended up being too large for me. So I did a mashup between views A and B, and I opted to do a halter version of the dress. And the dress ended up being too big for me. So I had to insert gathering in the for the bust cups, because the bust cups were just too big for me. And then also what happened, you know, my shenanigans with inserting zippers, they just wouldn't let me do it clean and done and dusted one time and let me move on with my life. So I inserted this bad boy, right? I was so happy. You understand? And then I pulled up the zipper to close it, and the zipper spoiled. I could have cried, I tell you. So I said, you know what? Forget this foolishness. I am not going to be messing with you finding another zipper and all of that. So I took out the spoiled zipper, and because the dress was a tad bit too large for me, I just removed the zipper and sewed it up and inserted some gathers in the back to just hold, make sure that it's more secure on my body. So that is what I did, and I love that dress. That dress has me in a chokehold. So I still wanted to do another dress in September, but I wasn't really I didn't really wanted to do another one for work. And so I'm like, 6491 was still on my machine, my work table, still looking at me. Yeah, you know you want to. Come on to this side. And I'm like, ah. I gave in. I definitely gave in. So I took the pattern out. So this, I think the first time I did a size 18. The second time I said, okay, let's go down to the size 16. I did my adjustments with it and we were good to go. Now the fabric, this fabric, oh my goodness, I am so glad that I was able to get a dress that I like out of this fabric. This fabric is an Oxford shirting fabric, cotton shirting fabric. And it's kind of a shade of purple. It's one of purple cousins. And the first time I had this material, I used this material, it was for Chris's pattern hackathon. I think it was last year. Yeah, I did. I participated in her pattern hackathon challenge. I made an outfit. I liked it, but I didn't love it. So I've never worn the dress. So I had, a little bit of material left over, enough to make something. But I'm like, whatever I make, it has to be one that I knock it out of the ballpark with and I get it right the first time, because there was no room for error, because the fabric was limited. So I decided to use the rest of that fabric for this dress the second time around. Absolutely loved it. Chef's kiss, chef's kiss. So I did size down the bust, everything. Inserted another zipper for this one. So this one definitely has a zipper. And the outcome for this dress is just absolutely phenomenal. This pattern is a TNT for me. So the second time, I did the double straps. So the first one is halter, the second one has the straps, and I am super pleased with this dress. You look 6491. Yeah, she's a TNT. And now I'm looking through my stash, just seeing what other types of fabric that I can do with this dress. How can I hack this dress? Maybe I might add some ruffles to the bottom of the dress. Listen, things are happening up here. So yes, I'm super pleased with the outcome of this dress. And yeah, you look 6491. Definitely a keeper. So the final dress in all of this remake, double the pleasure, double the fun, is a dress that I should have completed since May. And if you've been with me long enough, I think you would know what that dress is, because for months it was just thrown over my tripod bar. This looks familiar. Yes. Yes. McCall 7950. Listen. This pattern is actually a TNT for me. I made it a few years ago. I think it was with Ankara fabric and black cotton fabric. I use those two fabric to make it. And I absolutely love that dress. Oh my goodness. Now when I made it the first time, there was I did have some like gaping in the bodice part, and so I knew that was something that I was supposed to fix. So when I cut out this fabric again, I think it was back in March, April, you know what, I completely forgot that I had to make those adjustments. I cut out the fabric because I knew that the pattern fits. And I forget that I had to make those adjustments. So with this pattern, I still have, it doesn't lay exactly flat on my chest, which is a downfall, but I still love it nonetheless. Listen, I told myself I need to get this dress off of my tripod bar. Accumulated sewing whips is not in my regime. You know, quilting, knitting and crochet and jewelry making, that's another story. But as for garment making, I do not like to accumulate whips. And so I sat down and I completed that dress. But let me tell you something. I did I did a change to this pattern because if you notice, it has a button down front. And I'm like, I don't really want to mess with buttons and buttonholes. So guess what I did? I inserted a zipper. You know what? Let me show you all this dress. Even though you see it in the pictures and what's not, I inserted a dress. Look, not a dress, a zipper. So it has a zipper going down the entire length of the dress, and then it has a small slit opening at the bottom. And listen, this dress is amazing. Besides the small gaping that is at the top, I love the dress. Like I said, this pattern is always a pattern that I love, but I know that I need to fix that adjustment. This one didn't require a sway back adjustment or anything like that, so that's the only adjustment that I will have to fix so it can lay flat to my chest. And so I am so happy that I finished it. I would have preferred if I had finished it before so I could get a lot of wearing of it during the summer. But I live in the Caribbean. The sun is always there, so yeah. Yeah, so that was the last dress that I made. And overall, I am pretty happy with the outcomes. Like I said, for some of them, I do need to go back and do some minor tweaks to get it just how I like it. But other than that, I am super pleased that I was able to go back into my pattern stash and actually work with patterns that I've worked with before. You know, sometimes it's just good to just do remakes. I know we always want to be working on new things, and it's not always feasible because of time and whatever. Listen, those that initial work that you have to do with new patterns, ah, it's not always a happy time for me. Let me just say that. So it's always good, just to go back and go down memory lane and try to remake some stuff. So I'm very pleased with what I've done, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed my mix as well. So I think I've rambled on enough. And I'm going to leave you guys here right now. So if you stick with me for this long, you know what to do. Comment, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can be aware of all of my shenanigans, people. But I thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. I enjoyed myself. I hope you did too. All right, guys, I hope you had a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Think lovely thoughts, keep on smiling, and always remember to make beautiful and wonderful things. All right, lovies, I'm out of here. Bye.